Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is a short, relatively short, about 15-minute video on, again, nemeshing, if you're into that, but the less time-intensive nemeshing. This customer asked for not so dense, not so time-consuming quilting for this quilt, but still wanted it custom and still wanted it pretty. So what you're seeing right there in that block is a form of nemeshing without all the pebbles. And then we alternated the blocks with this swirl that kind of looks like a puff head. You know, those big circles at the end, those are puff heads and nemeshing, you can see there. And then alternating blocks with the swirls. So this version of nemeshing doesn't have the pebbles. The pebbles are what's time consuming. So what makes this different is that the flourishes in the nemeshing pretty much takes the space of everything. And my goal in this, as is Beth Ann Nemesh, who nemeshing is named after, she's the inventor of it. The idea is to make a consistently dense background fill with just the nemeshing, just the flourishes of the nemeshing. So that was my intent in this quilt. And later on in this video, you're going to watch me do 1 or 2 blocks of the nemeshing and then 1 block of the swirls that kind of look like puff heads in nemeshing. And then hang tight to the end of the quilt. I'll show you what I did with the borders, which the inner border has a border version of nemeshing, and then the outer border just has a pretty feather design on a nicely, slightly curved spine. So here is, okay, this first block is all going to be swirls that kind of mimic those puff heads in the nemeshing. And well, my customer and I both thought it would be a nice contrast to have the swirls in every other block and not just the nemeshing throughout. And I kind of like having variety, because I think just the more variety, the more interest in a quilt. Now, just like with pebbles, I like to vary the size of my swirls, because again, it adds interest, it hides flaws, it just makes the quilt more interesting. Now these swirls, if you notice, the trick to these, I don't know if trick is the right word, but every time I build a new swirl off a swirl I just quilted, I come off the back side. See, the back side and off, back to the back side and off, the back side and off, the back side and off, back side and off, back side and off, and then you'll see me travel all the way back down, oh, this time along a leaf. But see, every swirl, backside and off, backside and off, backside and off. Do you get that? Do you see that? That's what I think makes these swirls so pretty. And if you don't have a good place, just backtrack on that previous swirl until you get to a place where you can jump off. And I'm going to see if I can. See right there, I came all the way back down. Teeny tiny little ones. And when you get in tight spaces like that, make one side of your swirl right up against a stem or a leaf, and then you can travel along that. But these are so pretty, and they're so quick. And you can do these ginormous in a border. Adria Good, if you follow her channel, she has some awesome videos of border designs with this kind of a swirl And she'll do them in 4-inch borders, 5-inch borders, and big borders. Well, not big, but not teeny tiny borders. But see how I come off the edge? And you want to do 2/3 of a circle. See how I came back down that spine and found a good place to jump off the back side. Always jump off the back side. And this goes so fast, and it's just soothing. It's soothing to quilt. It's so pretty. Okay, so we're almost to the end. Well, we're halfway through this already, this block. Oh, I meant to mention this, the quilting speed, this is not actual speed. I sped this up to 2 times regular speed. So, sorry if you were thinking I was some amazing quilter, but yeah, this is 2 times regular speed. But even at that, these blocks go really fast because they're pretty. They're fast and pretty. Yeah, and see how I just backtracked all those spines there? You can do that and then just pop off. Otherwise, if you pop off the front of it, just looks silly. It does not look nice. Always pop off the back right there. And to the back and off. And to the back. And to the back of that other one and off. That's really the key to making these swirls look nice. Always jump off the back. So since we're leaving this, less dense, I'm not going to go into that little center area there. Okay, so this starts the Nemeshing. There's my puff head. And again, I am not here to teach you Nemeshing because, for one, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Beth Ann Nemesh. This is her technique, and right now, this is June 2022. She is still teaching her class, Feather Fiesta, at whitearborquilting.com, and she is an amazing teacher. You will learn much more from her as far as learning a technique than you ever will from me. I can show you the possibilities, and I enjoy doing that. Take her class. She does an awesome job teaching this as well as a number of other feathering techniques. So you'll see me on doing this lighter, as far as density, this light version of Nemeshing. I am jumping. I am basically starting and stopping several times, and rather than stop and formally cut my thread and go to the new spot and pull my bobbin thread up, that just takes too much time. Again, I don't have that kind of patience. And as long as you take 3 or 4 teeny tiny stitches, both at the beginning and end of each of your stops and starts, that will anchor it down, your stitches down incredibly well. And then I will trim the jumps off the top as I go, and as I roll the quilt, I will trim the jumps from the bobbin thread on the back. And then when I'm all done and I take the quilt off the machine, then I'll go back through the back and make sure that I've trimmed off all the bobbin thread jumps off the back. But that is totally okay to do that, and it doesn't make the quilt any less professional or well done, but it will save you an enormous amount of time if you just do those jumps in between your motifs. Because something that's this tight is going to need a lot of jumps. one of the things with Nemeshing is that if you don't use the pebbles to connect, it kind of looks silly if you just build on top of. And I agree with Beth Ann on that. It's better to start new flourishes just on their own and not stack them on top of each other. These are fun to quilt. And they're all different. They're so different. And in the beginning when I started doing these, I did have a cheat sheet. Beth Ann gives 4 examples of, there's your puff head, and then you build off that puff head. And one of the things that you can do is, let's see what we do here. Another puff head with a feather attached, or a swirl with a feather attached, or just a stack of feathers. So there are a number of things that you can do, and I love those feather stacks. I think those are just so cool. So here's another. Now this time, instead of a puff head, I started off with a slight swirl, and then used the puff head to start the feathering. So you can do any combination of these. That makes it so cool and so much fun because you're not going to get bored. So that little area up above there, and that's stacking. I stacked a puff head on top of that last feather. And you can do that once or twice, but you know, that's kind of limited. Because see how that, it just kind of looks kind of weird if you do that over and over and over and over again. But look how nice this fills the background of that applique. And that's what this video is for. The purpose of this video is to show you 2 possibilities for filling the background areas of applique quilts. So the one was the swirls that you saw earlier, the swirls that look like little puff heads, and then this is the lighter density Nemeshing. And then I got crazy and I put feather stacks on the inside here, just on that center area, because I thought it just looked I just thought it looked unfinished if I didn't put at least something in there, because that is kind of a more open center than in some of the other blocks. So again, you know, I didn't feel like it needed feathers everywhere, but just enough to make it look like it hadn't been abandoned or forgotten. Sometimes you look at a quilt and you wonder, did she forget? Or is that on purpose? I've done that with some of my own quilts. And then decided to go back and thought, yeah, I think I'll just fill that in. And then like right there, that would have been a place where I would have thought, yeah, she forgot that. Typically you want to leave an area. If you're going to leave an area blank, don't let that blank area be bigger than the biggest outline of any motif that you have. So if the blank area is bigger than a feather or bigger than a puff head, then yeah, you got to go fill that in. If it's about the same size, then, you know, ask your magic 8 ball. So this last part of the quilting shows how I did the other half of those half square triangles. And since the Nemeshing is basically feathers with swirls again, I did feathers and swirls in these half square triangles. So in a quilt, I tried to do 1, 2, maybe 3 things throughout the quilt just to tie it together. I'll pick feathers and swirls and straight lines, and I'll use them in several places throughout the quilt. And if I'm using something that's not that, then I'll make sure I'll throw something in, you know, like with these feathers. I had swirls in the quilt, so I'm going to throw in a feather in the middle, just again to tie it all together. Now stick with me through the end here. It's coming up shortly, in about another minute or less than that. You'll see the back of the quilt, and you'll see how I quilted those 2 borders. I didn't show that. I didn't record that. That's not going to be in any video because the lighting was off when I did the recording, and you just couldn't see it. So it would have been a waste of time for me to edit it, and for you even to spend time there straining your eyes to try to see it. So that's the back. I always love to see the backs of the quilts. You see that inner border right there in the middle of your screen? That's Nemeshing stacked as a border treatment. Now in that case, in a narrow border like that, I think it looks really cool stacked. And the key there is just to get enough variety in each of your Nemesh flourishes that they don't all look the same. I think the key there is the variety to make them all look different. And then that outer border, I just used a very soft spine curve and did alternating feathers and feather swirls. But I think it turned out so cool. Oh, then in the batik, the half square triangles on the front that were batik, I did continuous curve throughout all of those. And I think that's all I did in those. Oh, and I treated each square was sewn as 2 half square triangles, so I did continuous curve in each of those 2 squares. So here we are again at the end. Thank you for watching. All right, you guys, have a great summer. Thank you.